Dianna, what's up?
Hi guys, thanks for having me. I'm going to try to be respectful of this fantastic interview you guys do with me, but I'm going to have a little bit of a view of my phone while I chat with you
You're
because
cool.
stuff's flying around like crazy right now.
We want you on the phone. It's like when Adam Schefter's on TV and he's got his phone out all the time. Yeah, I actually like that. So, where do we start? I would. We just were talking about the Vikings, Diana, and with the trade deadline coming up, like I don't know if they were sellers before Kirk's injury, but to me, it makes a lot of sense to be sellers now.
Yeah, I was getting the sense that they were both actually. They were sellers and buyers,
Mm,
right? So Denell Hunter was a player that they've been trying to move for the last few weeks. They wanted a good price for that, at least a good compensation. But I think for right now, they're not really getting a substantial amount of interest. So he could be a player we wind up
it's wild.
seeing stay in Minnesota for the rest of the season. Of course, could change. That's the fun part of this time of year is things that I thought were not going to happen, like Leonard Williams, for example.
Mm,
He was
yeah.
a rumored name, but I'd spoken to a couple people around the league, including New York, and I just didn't really get this overpowering feel that they were going to move him. And now he's off to Seattle.
Yeah.
So, things do change quickly. And, you always hear this, Chris, from general managers, like, well, let's just see what happens this weekend. And then I'll tell you what's going on. And the thing is, there's some truth to it because a lot of the team's futures are changed week to week. And teams that I know look to be sellers 2 weeks ago, like the Denver Broncos, right? I mean, they are still going to be selling off a lot of their pieces, I believe, but their prices went up now because now they're winning and they're feeling good about themselves. So, very long-winded answer to get to your question about the Vikings. So we know Kirk Cousins now has this torn Achilles. What is the future for them? Right now I can tell you in terms of that position, they're doing their homework, right? So they got the feelers out. They're having conversations in the building about what the best option is. Is it trying to figure out if a Colt McCoy, who's already worked out for them, does that make sense? Is it worth trying to see if there's any backups, make any trades? Washington is not interested in trading their backup, Jacoby Brissett. Ryan Tannehill is injured right now, right? We're not too sure about his ankle situation, so I'm not sure if that would make any sense. And financially, I'm not sure if it would either. So I think Minnesota's got a big challenge here.
You mentioned the Titans there in your last blurb and Tannehill. Well, we saw Will Levis go out and have a great performance. How does this change the landscape for what Mike Vrabel and this Titans team is going to be looking to do as the deadline approaches?
That was just incredible to
Wild.
watch. Just like knowing what he went through and being in Nashville the night, well, at least the first two nights, and obviously we saw how dramatic that was that he didn't get drafted in the first round and the panic and his people and his family all just being crushed.
Yeah.
That nobody was going for him. And if you guys recall, um, Tennessee was trying to move up out of
Yeah.
the second round and actually get him in the first round too. Once they lost a top quarterback, they were trying to get him, but no one was willing to trade out to allow Tennessee to move up. So in the end, Tennessee wound up getting their guy, and now because Ryan was hurt, it was Will's time to shine, and he certainly did. And
Boy, that was fun to watch. But
it was,
do they
I mean,
become
everything.
do they stop being sellers? Do they stop being sellers though? Because like to me, we were just talking about it's such a difficult decision for Mike Vrabel. Like I watched moments in that game where I felt like for the first time that team really believed in weeks, if not all year, and now it's you got to make a decision that could crush your team. Like if it's shipping Derrick Henry or if it's DeAndre Hopkins, you're saying out loud that like this isn't the year.
Yeah, I don't think you could have put it any better because I think that's an actual real thought in that building right now. Because I agree with you. I mean, I don't know if it was the uniforms. I don't know if it was
I
alumni
hope.
weekend. There was just something about that was like that magic of the Titans that you and I used to like back in like 2019.
It was
Remember? I think
fun.
you and I were
It
like
was
the
fun.
only Titans fans on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't even like fandom. It was just like respect, right? Like
Yeah.
because they were just like grinding team.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're right. Moving forward, what do they do here? I wasn't told that they told Derrick Henry, and I've talked to a lot of different people on all different sides of this. I don't believe that Derrick Henry was told directly, we are not trading you. I think Derrick Henry's really smart, and he is well aware of the landscape of this team right now. I just think the Tennessee Titans haven't been able to find a team that's willing to give them a really big haul for Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think they're asking a lot from what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in his career, he's going to be 30 years old. And, he can still play. He's not the same guy that we saw in 2019. But I'm interested to see now if those teams that are in for running backs, like the Ravens, like the Dolphins, like the Vikings, would they be willing to maybe push in a little harder to get there?
Now, Dianna, with the Cleveland Browns situation, what's the latest there? I mean, there's been so much to talk about. We talked about the Browns defense earlier, but there's so much more to talk about. What's going on in Cleveland, Dianna?
Yeah, so the same information that's been coming out of there for the last, I'd say, 5 to 7 days now on Deshaun has really just been all, lined up and consistent, and that it's day to day for him, right? And it's pain. They really just want to be able to see if he can drive the ball down the field. And, I've talked to people just around him too, to just find out if some of this is maybe him not wanting to be out there. Because I think there's some narrative out there that maybe he doesn't want to play. He sat out already a full season. Maybe he's not as passionate about football. And you don't get that feel when you talk to that organization and when you talk to that locker room. And I think you can see it on TV, the type of locker room that they are already just on the field. You kind of get a vibe of what they're like. And he wants to be part of that. He doesn't want us to miss this, knowing that they could be really, really special if he could just go out there. So I was told he's improving. He is improving. So we'll just, to me, it's IR, right? Like that's what I would just monitor. Like that's usually the question I ask every Monday from every organization that's got a quarterback situation. Like, we going on IR or not? And then as soon as I get no, then it's like, I feel like he can work back. Then it's like, all right, well, how serious is this? So that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's interesting because if he's healthy, we might be talking about them being buyers at wide receiver. I mean, I thought from the beginning of the season they could use a number 2. But as you can see, the dominoes just affect everything. And so one question that's...
No, they're still poking around there, though, Chris.
They're still poking around.
Yeah. Okay. So you can be a general manager because... they're still doing
it. Might be easier than gambling and having a podcast. More profitable.
I feel your pain on that.
Yeah, you do.
Life on your own after ESPN is so different, man.
With Kyler
Murray, a grind all the time. Let's just face it, right? Sports is a grind for all you out there.
Sports is a grind, dude. It's a grind. It's a grind for the Cardinals, but I actually think the Cardinals they should be proud of the way they played. And for a 1-7 or 1-6 team, usually you wouldn't say that, but I think they're in every game, and like Jonathan Gannon can coach. It's obvious, but I don't know what they're trying to do with Kyler Murray possibly coming back this year. What's the sense you're getting? Are they hoping to get him out on the field so that they can show he can still play and then ship him in the offseason, or is he part of the future?
Yeah, let's start with just like what Kyler's done over the last few weeks. They really like his vibe in the building, what he's doing, the work he's putting into it, the rehab, what he's been doing in practice. He's been taking some reps, with the first team. So the plan here, from what I gather, is he's going to be out on the field over the next few weeks, right? So I'm thinking maybe Thanksgiving, maybe right before, he'll get a chance. And I do think because you have a new general manager and a new head coach here, this is a regime that wants to kind of take a look themselves. He's coming off an injury, right? And he's not their guy. They're coming into this. Mm-hmm. So I do think there's going to be some assessment here. But in terms of them like being open to trading him, I think some people were tossing that around yesterday, especially once Kirk Cousins went down, and we saw so many quarterbacks get hurt. From all the information I was given, that's not what they're doing. They're not calling anyone, and teams that have called them, which I heard that they did get a few calls. They're like, yeah, no, we're not.
I'm surprised they got calls, and I'm surprised they wouldn't follow those leads because I do think there's an element to a new coach, a new regime can bring out different work habits in a guy. And I know the work habits in the past have been, questioned. I also think what's relevant here is we're approaching the trade deadline. he might be coming back. But November 10th, Call of Duty releases the new one.
Oh, that's big.
So, like, just something to think about with timing. Like, do you want to trot him out before that, or do you want to get him when he's got a week under his belt playing? What is that called? What's when you're up in the airplane, you respawn? And
Battle Royale, little war zone.
Yeah, I know you know about that.
I got a football question here. You know, I watch all these teams every week, and there's so many teams that are contenders, but there's that one piece of the formula that's seemingly missing. We talked about teams that we think should be in the play towards the deadline. What are some teams that are working really hard today to add a piece?
Yeah.
In general, right? So you have Howie.
Yeah. We're having some technical difficulties here. I think she said Howie Roseman, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Diana. You can pick that up.
We got you. We got you.
Now.
Okay. Thank you. I'm so glad that you were able to understand that I meant Howie Roseman. So I think Howie's doing some work. John Lynch is making some calls around the league. I think I believe they're looking for an edge rusher. They're looking for a corner as well. The Buffalo Bills have made a few calls. And at this point, Washington is doing a little bit of both. They've put out some feelers themselves as sellers. We've been talking about the whole Montez Sweat and Chase Young story for weeks now, it seems like. And I really feel if when I come back on, hopefully next week or soon, we'll be saying that one of those guys are going to probably be gone. Mm-hmm. I did have somebody in Washington say to me this morning, though, that there are some people in the building that want to keep these guys, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's kind of like what you were just talking about with the Derrick Henry idea. And you guys can talk about this way better than I can about when you start looking around and seeing key pieces leaving and moving, mm-hmm. I'm sure it's pretty deflating, right? So these guys can believe that they can win. It's still so early. It feels like we've been doing this for so long, but I always like looking back at, this is such a chick thing to say, but I always go back to my Instagram and I look back at my pictures from games in October. I'm like, oh my God, that was so cute. I used to think those games mattered. Like, come December, I remember being so excited. I got a Frank Reich interview, mm-hmm. No one cared. It was week 7, so much changes. Hard in the moment to think of it. So, with players being moved right now, it truly is so early. So look, I do think one guy is going to be on the move there in Washington, but I know there are some people on that staff that want to keep him.
All right. Well, that's good intel there. And if there's it's always great to talk to Diana, but especially before the trade deadline. So great to have Dianna Russini on. Head honcho is what I call her at The Athletic. Well deserved. And hope to see you again on a Monday or two.
Thanks. Tomorrow's Halloween, so I got to try to figure out how I'm going to do this trade deadline stuff and take my little boys trick-or-treating. My sons are going to be Jason and Travis Kelce.
That's good.
So my 1-year-old, he's going to be Jason, and I got to figure out how to make his eyebrows really bushy. Yeah. So I got to go to the store.
Well, if you want the older son to have a good day, you should probably bring a Taylor Swift with him, because evidently the production's way different when Taylor's not at the stadium.
Apparently, I don't think it was that bad, but I hear. I know someone did ask me. So they're like, "You're gonna be Taylor?" I'm like, "No, I'm gonna be Jason's wife. She looks cool and she wears sweats.
So
That's
cool.
what I want to rock."
She is so cool. All right, Diana, appreciate you. We'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.